So I would like to welcome everybody to this workshop on parking. We're here to discuss parking in the village, and we have some recommendations that the trustees have come up with, and we are here to hear it from the public, how they feel, and if they have any suggestions and any input from the public is welcome. These obviously are going to affect not just our residents, but people visiting the village and, doing business with our Main Street and other businesses in the village. So the recommendations that we have in the Village Business District parking spaces is objectives is to maintain appropriate flow, turnover of parking, rationalize and simplify time restrictions to make rules easier to understand and improve enforcement, while considering business district residents who need overnight parking. Eliminate 3-day parking restrictions. That would be lots 11, 12, and 13 that you see on the chart. Recommend that all Village Business District parking be one of the following: either 2-hour parking, 3-hour parking, 24-hour parking, or paid parking. Other parking restrictions pursuant to the Village Code, Article 2, Section 265-23 to 265-33, and Sections 265-40 to 265-49. No overnight parking 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. on Washington Street and parts of Main Street. No vehicle shall be parked or left unattended on any village street for a period over 7 consecutive days. We also recommend, one of the recommendations is to consider kiosk for certain lots and locations. For paid parking lots, we recommend annual parking permit application process and stickers be applicable for lots 4, 6, 8 in Havens Beach from May through October. And we have a draft, I don't know who has it, we have a draft application process. And permit types and fees, we have village property owners and year-round village renter. So would anybody like, would you like to talk about, I don't have the second page. Oh, here it is. Sag Harbor Fire Department and Sag Harbor Volunteer Ambulance Corps members, Sag Harbor School and Fire, this is all under the types and fees. Sag Harbor School and Fire District resident or renter. Make all designated parking spaces on Long Wharf paid parking, including the first 4 spots on Long Wharf that are currently 30-minute parking. There's been some confusion with those spots and people have gotten ticketed where here they thought there was the first hour was free and it's a 30-minute spot. Adjust signage accordingly and consider additional lighting for signs. And then we have remote parking. Free employee off-site parking. Sag Harbor School has some spots. So the school district has been very cooperative and conversations are ongoing. Negotiate contract with the school for use of parking spaces by Village Business District employees for use from July 1st, through Labor Day. You can see how enthusiastic I am about this. Engage shuttle bus service to transport employees, recommended designated dedicated shuttle service drop-off and pickup spots at school and on Main Street. Valet parking, consider valet parking for remote lots that may be leased. Roman Catholic Church parking lot and Hashemua Park. Communication and technology tools. Wi-Fi will be implemented this winter. That's 2025. We're hoping by February. That will improve paid parking and communication to customers. Develop and provide public access to interactive web-based maps that can be accessed with QR codes to identify parking requirements for each location. Consider signage for lots 11 and 12, etc. Consider color-coded painting on parking lines on the street as additional indicator of respective parking restrictions. Blue lines for 2-hour, green lines for 3-hour. Clearly communicate and publish the limited seasonal enforcement of specific parking restrictions. Recommend paid parking will be in effect from May through October. Recommend that time parking restrictions be enforced from May through October. I just want to say again, these are just recommendations. This is something that we've come up with. These aren't written in stone, but these are things that we're recommending. It was interesting, the deputy mayor brought me that document, Nada, that you had furnished us from years ago about parking in the village. How long ago was that? Do you remember?
Came when I asked the other day, wasn't sure.
But a lot of the,
Wasn't sure.
Yeah. a lot of those challenges we're still facing, and some of them we've implemented. We found solutions to some of those. But this topic has been, as you know, as our village has become more popular and more people have come out and visited Sag Harbor and spent money in the businesses, it's an issue. It's an issue that we continually have to manage and rethink. And we also have to consider the overall character of our village as we move forward with this. There's only a limited amount of spaces available. We can try to rework some parking lots maybe and rework some traffic to enhance the parking experience. But I think these changes are going to be subtle and over time. That's just my opinion. And as I said, today we're looking at getting input from the public, how they feel. Maybe they feel there's another solution out there for us or another way to approach this problem. And also have feedback on what we've recommended. Bob, would you like to say something?
Excuse me, I would think we should talk about restriping. You know, a small car is 125 square feet roughly, and a regular slot is 150 square feet. So if you take 5 regular spots, you get 6 small ones in the same space. And I know like East Hampton and at the Rittersham parking lot in the back, they have a whole section that's dedicated to small cars. And I don't think it would work here, but there are places where we could consider that, just make them, and honestly, we can make them even a little tight for the standards. So for instance, you might have virtually anywhere, you could have like a row of 8 in a row or something of small car slots. And I think you fill them up pretty fast. And it is 20, it's a 20% ratio. So if you get, for the 5, you get 6. From regular to whatever, mini, whatever they're called. And also, it's annoying sometimes when you're on Main Street and you think you've got a spot and you happily start to pull in and there's a motorcycle there or an electric bike. Maybe we could have a dedicated little couple of slots someplace, maybe at either end, maybe in the middle. I don't know how it would work, but someplace where motorcycles and electric bikes and that kind of stuff could park. Again, I think you're right. It's a matter of nipping it around the edges, trying to trim the tree, so to speak. But you know, little things can add up, and without sort of manufacturing more turf, I don't. That's the only way we can do it.
And we've gotten some recommendations from residents regarding some of the parking lots, and we're going to present some of the drawings that we've gotten. We have that available, right, to pull up when we have to. But I'd like to, if there's anybody in the audience or anybody on Zoom that would like to comment on some of the recommendations I just made or have some recommendations of their own, I'd like to hear from them. Yes, ma'am. You want to come forward and state your name and where you live?
I am Jill Shearer. I live on the fringe of the village. I'm a landlord. I own a building that has Black Swan Antiques, Reading Gallery, and the Nightingale Gallery, which is across from Sen Restaurant. I got very alarmed from comments that my tenants have made. Are having customers tell them we're not coming in to Sag Harbor in the summer. We've given up. It's a nightmare. And friends that live in other towns have said we don't go to Sag Harbor anymore. And none of our friends do. written it off, it's a nightmare. If you get there, you know, you're lucky in the summer, you can get there, and then if you find a parking space, you know, you really hit the jackpot. So it just seems to be, things are really coming to a head. And I'm starting to come to the meetings because, I sort of feel that, you know, we need to move on some of these things. I had a few recommendations. These are little easy things. Coming into town, there's no way you can go along Bay Street. It just gets all backed up. It's a real hot spot there. Union Street is a good way to cross town and come in around to the west. And Union Street has, it's not being enforced, the ticketing, there are people that are parking in no parking spots, especially some construction trucks by that Mexican deli on the, can't think of the name of it.
Cilantros.
Yes, cilantro are parking there. That's getting all backed up now, and then there's a row of spaces, maybe 5 spaces, where we can park. And that's getting all bogged down. The cars have gotten bigger over the years. These pedestrian killer trucks are enormous. And if there's a car parked on the side of the road, and there's one of these large trucks or a wide Tesla, you have to wait, you're waiting, and you're backing up everyone in the intersection from Madison. And it's getting to the point where you just can't get into town without it being a grueling process or out. So my suggestion, very easy, make Union Street, the entire length of it, no parking, at least in the season. I think that would really help with the flow in. The other issue is the parking lot behind. I worked as a retailer for 23 years. I'm very familiar with the comings and goings in the lot behind my building, which is behind the pharmacy, the laundromat. Guess that's the Meadow Street lot. That lot gets a lot of people running in and doing errands, picking up items at the IGA and the hardware store. These are 30-minute errands. And to me, it would seem great if you could make that lot 30 minutes. Unpaid, 30 minutes, that's the place you go to park and do a quick errand, not circle around and around on Main Street, hoping and praying that you can get a parking space by the time you get around again. So people will know, just go there, they can go around to the back from the west side, don't have to go down Main Street. So I think having that 30-minute, no pay, just in and out, get them in and out. You have a lot of contractors now coming in, and they have to go to the hardware store, get some sort of something, and maybe grab lunch, and they're in and out of that parking lot all day long. And they're also up and down Main Street trying to find a space. So you could, they could utilize that as well. I think that would help. And then that's just sort of the easy stuff. Long term, yes, make the parking lots, the public lots, that are within 3 blocks of Main Street. None of them should be 24-hour. They should be 2 or 3 hour. And then push the people, the apartment tenants, the employees further out. I always find parking along Gordon Drive,
Or Maria?
yeah, past Ship and Shore, there's always plenty of parking there. And that whole strip could hold 50 cars.
You're talking Bay Street or you're talking?
Bay Street, yeah, end of Bay Street, push those further out. And you'd be able to use,
Right.
have more turnover with parking spaces closer to Main Street. That's simple to do, and you would only need to do that in season again, so, people wouldn't be a hassle to be walking in the warm weather. Okay. And I think the satellite parking lot for Floyd is a great idea. Well. And I think eventually, this is more long-term, I think that you're gonna need to have some sort of raised walkway from the corner of Bay Street to the corner bar. More and more towns are doing this, and that would create better flow from Bay Street and 114 through that intersection that's always crazy, and they can go on over the bridge. That would alleviate all the backup here, but that might be more long-term. But that's something that I think should be looked at.
How would that function exactly? What you just said, the raised walkway?
It's a raised
Right,
walkway.
but how would that solve that issue down there?
Because hordes of people come off the pier, they parked on the pier.
Walking, you mean?
Walking, the pedestrians, and they're crossing from Bay Street to the corner bar.
It does, yeah, this
Traffic
is,
stops.
exactly, it's more of a traffic issue
Yeah.
than,
And it
yeah.
backs up, and that whole corner, and then behind Provisions, it's just gridlock. And if you could get that flowing with a raised walkway,
Oh, I mean raised, like
raised,
oh,
yes,
Like a bridge?
like a bridge,
The footbridge.
a footbridge,
oh, I was picturing
yes.
just raised.
So
It's actually it's come up in conversations about the pedestrian traffic,
it would
and-
definitely alleviate
Right.
that whole,
which is one of the reasons that the walkway that we're working on, which goes from Windmill Park under the bridge into Steinbeck Park, we're hoping would alleviate some of that foot traffic when it's completed.
maybe, yes.
But that's been brought up in conversations. It has been.
Yep. And I guess that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you, Jill. Thank you. Yes, Ken.
Eduardo, I'm going to I have to leave unfortunately around 5:40, so I wanted to quickly say a few things. First of all, I know you get a lot of grief. I want to say how glad I am you're doing this. I think it's fantastic. You're taking a lot of good steps. I also feel that once this is set up with the apps and paid parking, it will make it a lot easier. A lot of things you're talking about, Jill, probably resolve, people know where to park. I have a couple of questions. One is that, I worked in all this stuff years ago and a lot of them on my laptop, and then there are other people who have ideas and have maps and that have never been. What's the best way to channel them? Should we go through, say, Sag Harbor, because there's no transportation committee? What is the best way?
You could email me or one of the trustees, which has happened. We actually have a couple of ideas that our residents have put forward. Yeah,
So the best thing is just go straight.
absolutely.
Okay, the other thing, I actually wanted to mention Bay Street, because I remember Kathy Mulcahy was talking about, there's a lot of space on Bay Street. There's room there actually for parking some of the Main Street, which would allow but there has to be a sidewalk. And this is why, as we said in the meeting at the Sag Harbor Express, I think, Jesse, and your idea of focusing on the low hanging fruit, especially getting the employees off, is number one. But then there has to be a parallel track saying
Right.
sidewalks can be there to make that work. That's my second comment, so I really wanted you to think about that and I'm happy to think about with you. The third thing is, I had an incident a few weeks ago, which really struck me. And I'm gonna tell you about it because I was actually coming to the parking lot of Heinz Giovanni's, and Kate Plum, your sister, was talking with an older guy, like he was African-American from Bridgehampton. He doesn't have an iPhone. He's an old car. He's just trying to shop. He didn't know what to do. So I said, oh, I knew him. I said, don't worry about it. I'll pay for your parking. Of course, there was no Wi-Fi, so I couldn't do that. So I said, if you get a ticket, call me. He did.
When was this?
2, 3 weeks ago, maybe it was longer, it was actually warmer, so might have been in the summer. Might have been in the
Okay.
summer. My sense of time is completely gone as I get older, but it was a while ago. And it made me think, first of all, there has to be something for people who don't have iPhones, who have no mechanism to do that. Secondly, Bridgehampton is excluded if you look at the school district, because the school district is way up on the Saguenay side, but a lot of Bridgehampton people are much closer. So I want you to consider Bridgehampton because of the historical, it's close to Sag Harbor, but it's not the school district. Some mechanism to include them in the Bridgehampton community at any time, especially those who live along the turnpike. Just put it out there, I don't think it's only fair. Okay,
Okay,
thanks, I appreciate it.
thank you.
I think we talked about maybe employee parking zone up there, past the marina on both sides of Bay Street.
Right.
Like maybe like 9 to 5 or something, and they get a sticker and they could stay there as long as they want for free. But, get them to park up there, like
On
towards
Bay
High
Street.
On Bay, both sides of Bay, up even all the way to High Street, on both sides. You could probably put 50, 100 cars up there.
Charlie? You want to just let everybody know who you are, Charlie, just so.
Charlie McCown, I actually live in Noyak, but I own a building over here on 6 Rector Street. So I have 2 things. The first thing will lessen parking, actually. When they were doing the work on Bay Street, I thought they were gonna make that parallel parking, like the whole length of Marine Park. Because someone's gonna get hurt. This is the 3rd time I've been to a meeting to discuss this. When a woman is coming with a baby stroller and she goes out into Bay Street, not only is not enough room sometimes for 2 cars, there's not enough room for a baby carriage and a car.
Now, let me
Someone's gonna
interrupt you
get-
for a second, just so we're clear. When you say on Bay Street, I just want to make sure we're in the right area,
Length of Marine Park,
in front of Marine
on
Park.
both sides,
Right now it's diagonal parking?
yes, very
Okay.
dangerous.
And you're saying that it's,
Itself, Tom, if there's a delivery truck coming in a car, you have to stop, there's not enough room.
right,
And someone's gonna step out, and a lot of people on their phones. And this is the 3rd time I brought it up, so. I thought when they're doing all that, like.
the repaving,
like
right,
paving,
permeable paving
yeah, I thought-
permeable
I thought that's what they were
pavers.
gonna do,
was make it,
parallel parking. But they didn't, but,
which would greatly,
Really
it would
something-
reduce the number of spots, as
But-
you said,
but if you adopt my second proposal. It'll be all right.
okay?
Because my second proposal is, years ago, my wife and I were in a town called Staunton, Stauton, Virginia. It's an old town, and they had a parking problem just like we did in we do in Sag Harbor. So they built a building behind Main Street, I think it's actually in the middle of town, but. And they made it just look like an old factory, like Boulder. And you could do that behind Sag Harbor Savings Bank, well, Apple Bank, dating myself. You could put like a 3 or 4 story parking garage there. And 3 sides would look just like Boulder, use the same windows. Put even fake doors or whatever, and then one side on this building in Virginia, they had the entrance. And it was paid parking, so maybe you got you can't have 1 hour, 2 hour parking and say, because people go to dinner or lunch and go shopping. You can't do all that in 2 hours, I don't think it's fair to people, but if you had this parking garage. Now, this is a long-term solution, this isn't gonna happen next summer, is it? But it's something, one of the trustees would either get in touch with Staunton and have them send the plans that they have. It's a really nice building. And there's all different options you can.
We've had people come to us with different ideas for parking garages that look historic, and some of them have, art on the side, or they have, ivy growing up, it blends into the landscape.
Right.
But a parking, to build something like that, I don't know if the public is really gonna support that, or,
Well, it would be paid for by the people paying the park bill.
I understand that,
Yeah.
but you're talking about it's just, I understand what you're saying.
Something to look into,
I don't think we're allowed to build on the bank lot though, are we?
No, but there are other areas.
Actually, I think you're not, prohibited from building on that parking lot, but you cannot charge paid parking on that parking lot.
Thank you, Charlie.
You're welcome.
You know, on the average, in this country, it costs between $20,000 and $30,000 to build a parking spot in above ground in a building. It's a lot of money.
What if you rented the top of it for solar panels? To pay for it.
Is there anybody else that, I'm sorry, Jill, I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm trying to move along the meeting. Anybody else that wants to speak? Not on Zoom? Nada?
Oh, sorry,
What?
Alan, but no, please.
I believe in trying anything, so I'm not against your trying to work with the school and so on. But I have discussed with my few staff who potentially could use it and other people, that one thing that you'd have to consider is if you only have one piece of transportation transporting people, that's a 20-minute scene, and somebody could be sitting there for 20 minutes up at the school, waiting. The bus has just left and going on back. And so they're instantly reaction, and what if it's implement and they don't leave ahead of time enough to come to work. So this is a little bit of a problem in my mind.
Would two be enough?
Pardon?
Would two be enough?
I think, yeah, whatever,
Whatever you work
if we
on.
do this, if we get the satellite up and running, whatever shuttle service we had would be a rapid shuttle. It couldn't be something, or we'd discuss it with the employers, like what time does your business open? What time do your employees come in? When do we need the most resources dedicated to that area?
Well, the difficulty I can tell you right now is it varies tremendously in this village. I mean, some days we have somebody coming in at 10 and then sometimes 10:30, sometimes 11:30. I don't know how many people work 9 to 5, but you might find a lot of 10 to,
Right.
10 to something, yes. I agree, but talking about the garage, I brought that up many years ago and it keeps coming up in back of Apple. Isn't that two things? One, we don't own that property, and two, the substance under the ground there of holding anything that may have changed in this day and age.
Well,
But anyhow,
anytime you put a shovel in the ground, you have to make sure that you're not doing anything or disturbing anything or uncovering anything that's toxic. We're in the process of doing test holes up at the property on the turnpike.
Yeah.
Make sure that everything, or not, to see what exactly is in the ground before we would put any structure there.
by the way, Bay Street, the parking is already going further and
It
further
is.
back, as you're
That's
probably
true.
aware than it used to be. Nil.
That's correct, Nada. Anybody else? You said there was somebody on Zoom? Ellen?
Yeah, hi. I think I'm unmuted now. So just a couple of sort of random thoughts from stuff that's been said. First of all, at a express sessions that we had many years ago, and we had a guy in who was some sort of an expert on parking and traffic, and he said Sag Harbor had a walking problem, not a parking problem. And that is sort of is echoing the idea that we'd have to make sure that there was easy ways to walk on sidewalks from all these places that we're going to be pushing people out, hopefully to park. I know that that's been an issue for me walking along Bay Street, because I do often park down by Cora Maria also. Another thing is, I think we can all agree that moving employees to the school or the church or wherever is not going to be a perfect solution. You know, I work various hours. Some days I'm 9 to 5, some I'm 10 to 6. It depends. And I think that's going to be an issue. But overall, if we, you know, the village can come up, and certainly we've talked about it, and the chamber will help with reach out to our membership as much as we can. I think everyone on the chamber board is 110% behind trying to help with the employee parking issue. If we can come up with timeframes that work, I think that it's going to be a big help no matter what. It's not going to solve the entire problem, but you know, if we get 100 people off of the business, out of the business district parking wise for their shift, I think that's great. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is the delivery problem. And I know that's not exactly a parking problem, it's a traffic problem also. But I have my biggest problem with parking, with trying to get my way around delivery trucks in the summer, particularly the trucks delivering to liquor stores, to the restaurants, everything like that. Now, obviously, this is crucial and it's terribly important to all of the businesses in the village that deliveries can be made and can be made easily. But it would be great if somebody smarter than I am could come up with something that would maybe make it so they weren't parked, taking up a whole bunch of spaces, blocking Crothers Alley, blocking, my entrance to the Express office. They park right behind there, and it's dangerous. You try to walk out on the street, you can't see. So I think deliveries is an issue, and also from a nicer perspective, thinking about the businesses involved, I worry about places like Bay Street doing load-in for a show, and if you're going to change the spots in front of Bay Street Theater there to paid, is there going to be some way that if the vehicle's running, they could still unload scenery? Similar things with any businesses that are doing deliveries and load in and load out. So I think deliveries is something, and parking and how that's handled, that needs to be added to your list of problems to solve. So anyway, that was just the things occurring to me while I was listening to everybody.
So we did discuss that. It was discussed about changing the 30-minute spots to, so there's no
Right,
confusion.
you'd said that. That's why I was
Let me
wondering what
finish.
will Bay Street do when that
Yes.
happens? Because I know.
Let me
right now
finish,
they're-
Ellen.
What?
So the point I'm trying to make is, we also discussed designating a loading zone for them to load and unload,
Or Kate, if you can describe the current process, it's keeping the current process in place even.
which is they apply for a permit when they need to.
Right.
And they could still do that.
They can
Yeah,
still
no,
do that.
I understood that they can do that, and I'm just thinking there's just a bigger problem. I think loading zones would be a key, maybe in other areas in the business district also. It's just so haphazard right now and dangerous, in terms of just people getting around.
I have a question for any of the merchants that might be in the room. Is it possible, I know this is a long shot, is it possible to schedule deliveries at specific times of the day, or that industry just doesn't run like that, so that we knew? I mean, if it could be done overnight. In New York City, there's a lot of deliveries take place overnight, a lot of activity that needs street parking. Not sure if that works with fresh produce and all that sort of merchandise. But as we say, we're looking for incremental steps to try and solve a problem. Probably some people disagree with this, but when trucks park in the center of Main Street and they unload, that seems to me a better solution than having trucks parking on 114 and blocking traffic. And that's a complete haphazard catch as catch can when people show up. Is there any way, and I guess this is a question for the chamber, is there any way that deliveries could somehow be more organized? Or are they just going to remain random?
I mean, I'll jump in if you guys can still hear me and say, I would guess that it is random. I don't know that there's any scheduling it. I can say just from how it's affected me personally, Thursday is a huge delivery day. And it seems to be crazy. I think the parking in the middle of Main Street has been an improvement. I think that is better than sort of everyone all over the place. I don't know. We could look at, we could ask some of our membership, put something out there. Is there any way to schedule deliveries? My thought is it's going to come back no. And even if you can schedule it, are they going to be on time with the traffic getting out here and everything?
Could you do something like a delivery from 5 to 7:30 in the morning, which
Yeah.
the village is usually pretty quiet. Also, if you're traveling from Up Island, you'll tend to be a little bit ahead of the horrible traffic. Just in the spirit of the conversation, just to, maybe ask the question and see if that could be an incremental, something that could be done for some deliveries.
No, I think that's a great question. I also want to add that I really want to applaud you all for taking this on this way and for working on it. I mean, we've been talking about it I feel like the entire 42 years I've lived here, and I'm sure people who've lived here longer feel like they've been talking about it for that amount of time too. But I really think we're getting down to some nitty gritty, and I think you guys have come up with some really good solutions. I think there's some good stuff on the table now, and I think if we can all be proactive, that we will see an improvement. It might be incremental at first, but every little bit can help.
I think what is the change that I've seen, and this is my 8th year on the board, so obviously I'm a neophyte here, but it has gone from an inconvenience to a gross inconvenience to an existential crisis that I think we've reached last summer was a tipping point.
Absolutely.
And I think that, you know, one truck parked at 114 offloading can discommode thousands of people, literally, and create a dangerous environment. So there might be an enforcement aspect with that. I know it sometimes Nada had problems getting at the back of her store because of delivery trucks. And that's not tenable. You know, we're better than that.
Ellen, can I ask that you ask the chamber also the concept of loading zones for limited time periods? Limited
Absolutely.
days, limited time periods, what might be good locations, frankly, for that would serve the highest number of stores getting big deliveries?
Yep. Yeah, we can do that. And I also, I know I had talked to Ed and Aiden, at the Express Sessions and I have talked to a couple of people on the, executive board about helping with just getting the word out when things do change and when decisions are made, and that the chamber would certainly work with the village on, you know, social media aspects of that and trying to, whatever outreach we have, do that also, because I think that's part of the problem.
Yeah. One thing, Alan, on that, and I've said this a couple of times, if anybody who wants to participate can go to the village website and create an account, and they will get both an email and a text, depending on which service they prefer, or both, of just about every activity in the village, every meeting, every change. But very few people have participated. And I think I get them all the time. And, you know, I'll get notices about meetings that I'm not involved with. But it gives you a great picture, and I think, you know, we should applaud the staff at Village Hall because they're really good at doing this. And it's the best way we have of communicating. But as you know, communication is a two-way street, and the service is there. And I would just encourage people to participate. I think it would be helpful.
Just got to get that out, it works. But so few people know about it.
Well, there's something that we need to put out there too. And I just think that once the decision, whether it's, you know, blue lines for this term parking, and I love the color coding idea. I think once things like that, you know, have been decided and they start being implemented, the more that anyone, you know, any business, the chamber, the village, anyone out here, you know, Save Sag Harbor, all the groups that are around, the more we put the information out there and the more we share it with all of our membership, the better it's going to be. Because I know people are wandering around going, I can't tell you for the Santa visit, how many people asked me last weekend, do we use the app? Is there an app? There's no sign. Do I pay? Is it free parking? So people don't even know now whether it is.
That's a very fair point, because there are no signs because we took them down, but people know in the back of their minds that there is paid parking in Sag Harbor, and we probably should put up signs saying there is no, you know, all parking is free in the village right now. Or there's a way of communicating that. That's probably an issue with us having seasons where it comes and goes. But it's a really it's a great point.
I said, if there's no sign up, my guess is they're not charging. That was basically what I went with. So yeah, okay.
Yeah. Nope, that's really good. Thank you.
Okay. Eddie, would you like to say something?
Yeah. Right.
Good.
Eddie Corcoran, 6 Amos Lane, Sag Harbor. Just want to commend the board on kind of discussing this issue and just letting the board know, as like village residents with young kids, just from our perspective coming into the village in the summer, we really like the short-term parking spots, like 30 minutes, 1 hour. You know, usually you can grab one of those if you come in. They're kind of, you know, high turnover parking spots. One thing I would say is, like, you know, it's usually going to like Provisions or Skivoni's or, you know, Chris's or, you know, any of those high turnover stores. So maybe on Bay Street, some of those spots could be, you know, instead of 2 hours, maybe they're 1 hour or 30 minutes, just where there's high activity. We found that works very well for us. I mean, we walk in a lot into town.
Right.
But actually, if we need to nip into town, we do use those spots. I think the lady Jill, she mentioned about the, you know, short-term parking spot. I think for village residents, it's pretty helpful, especially near the grocery stores and stuff like that.
I've used the spots to go to
Yeah,
the
I
bank
mean,
or,
just they always kind of turn over. I think Bob makes a very good point on the motorcycle or the bicycle. I guess motorcycle really, because technically you're not supposed to be riding a bicycle on Main Street, but the cycle spots. Yeah, I mean, I've done it quite a few times during the summer. You get the bikes are parked up in the full parking spot. My other comments will be, we do use VDOT. We're fortunate to have a little boat on VDOT, but obviously in the summer, parking over there is pretty hard to get a spot. I did see mention that there's discussions on replacing the cables with a new dock and
Yes.
adding spots. I do think the village needs to consider parking. You know, as part of that, like they're adding 15 spots, so obviously, and I think moving it from cables to floating dock is gonna increase activity over there quite a bit.
Yeah, oh, it's even more than 15.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the number is, but like just moving off the cables onto floating dock, and I do know it is a dangerous pedestrian area over there because people end up walking in the street. But I did see a proposal, I think on one of the plans, that maybe there was gonna be a boardwalk,
yes,
like a pedestrian, so maybe as part of that, there's switching I think it's part of the parking right now, maybe switching to diagonal. Should be part of that whole process.
Can I ask you a question about that,
Yeah.
since you're a boat owner there? What's the duration of the parking that you think should exist there? Because right now it's 24-hour, very difficult to enforce. It's also true of other places along Bay Street, in front of marinas.
Yeah, I actually thought it was just 24, because it's not very well signposted over there, so I actually thought it was just 24 hours over by VDOC, that the rest was 2 hours. And then actually what we do notice over there is, like this, a lot of the staff at Barron's Cove will park in the street. They don't actually park in because if you go over there in the morning,
they don't park inside Barron's.
a lot of times if you go over there in the summer in the morning at like, 9-10 o'clock, there's a lot of cars parked there, but they're parked close to Barron's Cove, and it looks like it's staff. I've seen a couple of guys, and it's the same cars every day. So maybe they could just park in their parking lot.
They have a park down the back, right?
Yeah. So we just noticed that, I mean, before I had kids, when I was over there a little bit more frequently. We noticed that the cars there, but just little things like that, but I think we just do need to consider if we're gonna be increasing or changing the dock, we gotta
Increased
change the
parking.
parking a little bit too.
Yeah.
Cause it will become busier over there, obviously. But I didn't actually know, until I looked at that map, I didn't really know it was 24 hours for a lot of, so I don't know if we need that much 24-hour parking over there.
And it's worth noting that 24 hours is very difficult to enforce,
Yeah,
which essentially, 23-day, we're recommending ending, but 24 hours is almost as equally difficult to enforce. So we have to the extent we keep a lot of 24-hour parking, we have to think about ways to enforce it better than we currently do. And it's not, we don't have traffic officers or police that are going to be enforcing every single thing. There's got to be simpler ways of doing it.
so I mean, that's just kind of like from our perspective, the short-term parking is great, it's probably a nightmare for enforcing.
Well, I will say that in all these conversations
Yeah.
we're having,
Just like a-
the chief and
Yeah,
Right.
TCO1, Lady Torado, are active in those discussions
Yeah.
because enforceability is important,
Yeah.
whatever we do.
They do make devices, essentially a cell
Thank you.
phone.
Thank you, Ed.
Mayor, may I just offer one other thought to add to the mix here that we haven't mentioned tonight, and we did mention at the express sessions, is to encourage ride sharing and Ubers. A lot of people are coming into town, they're having cocktails, they're eating, and instead of Uber stopping on the street or constantly circulating, adding to the traffic, waiting to pick up, if we could have maybe take some parking spaces that are now just going to accommodate 1 or 2 automobiles and could become a shared space for an Uber drop-off pickup, have one on the north end, one on the south end of Main Street. I think we'd get greater public use or a greater person count per space over the course of an evening. It's also to encourage Ubers, not to take spaces in town while they're waiting. Not sure how we do that legally. It could be a no idling rule, might help a lot of being enforced. But it's just a thought. It's something I'd like to add to the mix that I think it would also help to share these spaces in a more efficient manner.
There are also devices made for traffic control, which is essentially a cell phone, takes a picture of the license plate, excuse me, timestamps it, and you come back at any time and do it again. And if wherever that car, it tells you how long the car's been there. And they're, you know, they're not that expensive. And I think it could be tied into Park Mobile. That might not be necessary, but it could certainly be electronically linked to the court where they could automatically write the ticket. I think once people get the idea that it's being enforced, I think it'll be, people will pay attention more. But they do
Anybody?
make those.
Okay. Anybody else want to speak? Yes, sir.
My name is Chris Seaford. I'm Deputy Director of Bay Street Theater. I live in Noyak. Thank you. I echo everybody. Thank you for taking the time. I just had a couple of notes here. One, the Bay Street, the 4 spaces changing into 30 minutes to whatever. I think it's a great idea. It's a lot of confusion right now for me. In terms of Bay Streets, we have no problem doing the current permit thing to get it. The biggest issue is a safety issue that first space, when you come onto Long Wharf, people are trying to turn off Bay Street or come down Main Street. That first one, it's got a little bit of hash marks behind it, which sort of indicates, no parking, but that becomes a drop off point for people. So I don't know if there's a way we could look at that as a design issue, drop off / no parking for loading, unloading. I don't know, but it might be something.
You're saying people are using it for a drop-off
Yeah.
area?
So you say no standing is what you'd want really then, and that,
Well, that's what's there now, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, it becomes and then it becomes a traffic issue as everything comes out. So it's a lot, that's a very difficult life safety intersection already for pedestrians coming off of Long Wharf, going to Main Street. People on Bay Street in their cars don't often look to the right. And if you're trying to cross the street going towards Corner Bar, it's one of the things, when we lecture our summer staff every year, we tell them, do not go into that intersection unless you know that car stop. We had a young woman on a bicycle who was hit, and Tracy, our executive director, was almost bumped. I've had people almost drive over my toes there. It's a bigger life safety issue about that whole intersection, but the first space off onto Long Wharf contributes to it. The free employee parking sounds great. I mean, I think we all know this, but the season is obviously now at least from May until Labor Day. You all know that, but just to kind of emphasize, of course, anything, as Ellen pointed out, is welcome. July to Labor Day is great with the school district, but we encourage our employees to go to Rice Street. So they're just parking there. So to go up to the Port Maria area as well, it's not that big of a distance. They all sort of a walking distance issue. We do have employees that work late at night because of our shows. And so I'm not sure how 24-hour shuttle might be, or it might only be limited, but that's something to think about.
How late do the employees work? How late did you say they
Well,
work
we have,
sometimes?
there are some weeks when we're doing load in for load out where they'll be here until 1 a.m., 2 a.m. But that's maybe 3 weeks of the summer, three times during the summer. Other times, our employees work through the end of the show. It's ending at 10 p.m. So they're leaving at 11.
Okay.
But we can,
It's all part of the logistics of figuring out the shuttle and,
Mhm.
yes.
you should figure out the logistics of the theater.
I've been involved in some logistics over time, trust me.
I think color coding is one idea to consider. I don't want to be too in the weeds about it, but blue is usually reserved for handicaps, so you gotta watch these in that color.
Mhm.
But I do have a concern about sort of the compact car idea. Prior to my current employment, way back, I was a landscape architect. Used to be buying parking lots, which was just so much fun. But compact car spaces in theory work well, but pretty much people just don't pay attention anyway. So it's a very difficult thing to enforce.
Isn't it physically impossible to get a big car in there?
It's not physically, you can't.
You just can't get
there'd
out.
be a, right, there'd be a constraint on how small you could actually make it.
Right,
And a car would still fit in it, whether or not the doors would open.
right.
is Another issue, so I'm sure, I mean, I know in Honda, I'm sure you have good design people to talk with about this, but that is something to be careful. I do like the motorcycle idea, and I think that's a good one, where you can see it.
Except how do you tell people that there's motorcycle parking someplace? There you go. There's always something.
Yeah, no, it's how many do you need to accommodate? I don't know. I mean, these are questions and studies that we need, but there could be a place.
But I mean, putting together an interactive map for people is gonna be a key part of this to communicate it.
But that's obviously an issue, you know, but you can turn, you know, one parking space into 2 motorcycles, so immediately you got, you can have 6 motor.
Or even
you
more,
Just
right?
lose 3 spaces
Mhm.
and that might be all you need, I don't know.
I think so. It's never more than 2 or 3, I don't think, at a time.
There's like 1 or 2 days of the year when the whole brigade comes through, but they're just coming through.
Can I just
So
say even,
that's my initial reaction. Oh, and then the schedule of unloading and deliveries and stuff, yeah, we could look at that for Bay Street, I mean, again, if we were able to sort out this whole first space right on Long Wharf. Loading, unloading, no parking, no standing, et cetera. That might solve it for us, but we do use the current permit process to reserve some spaces when we have to loading, unloading, or have to place a dumpster or something, so. But as people have pointed out, the Bay Street in front of Corner Bar and along the side of Provisions there is just, when they're making deliveries. We have a dumpster over there, but we don't, they have to be out by, I think we have them coming at 5 AM or something, like we actually time restrict them. So that's kind of my observations on this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What just to comment on that, where Provisions has their trucks unload, or whoever's having trucks unload, whether it's the Corner Bar, Provisions, when they're big trailers parked there. The problem is you get another truck that's coming off of Main Street. In order for them to navigate, they're basically coming into oncoming traffic.
and
And
even cars have to sometimes.
that's a difficult spot. I did actually, if you pull up the village code, which I was sent on parking, there's no deliveries, excuse me. According to the code, there's no deliveries allowed between 9 AM and 6 PM without that, for vehicles or trucks over 22 feet, without the business applying for or requesting permission for that. So there's already on the books there's you know, a code that states that that's not allowed. It's not practical, I don't think, because people need their deliveries, but I don't know if people are following, I don't think they're following the process of coming to the clerk and asking for permission.
I think that's first, and we could seek that, but then also that would help us identify what places need loading zones. Maybe we can identify nearby loading zones that wouldn't tie up traffic.
I think loading zones are important. I think the satellite parking is important. I think those are things that we should really look at to start.
If
And
we
also-
wanted to enforce loading zone issues on 114, that's not something the village can do. That's something we'd have to reach out to New York State.
It's a state road. Yeah, it's correct. It's a state road, Aiden. But I don't know how it would apply. We have village businesses, so our purview may stop there. As far as the road itself, Sag Harbor Village Police does patrol the road. So it
Because
could be
that's
a
one of
matter of how we write the code.
Yeah, because that's one of the most in summertime, that's backed up forever without delivery. And any delivery there takes takes one side of the street out.
Aiden,
I would agree
are you
with
saying
that's a
you're
problem.
certain we cannot enforce a loading zone on 114?
Oh, no, I'm just asking the question to say that there's an
Yeah.
added complication there that we just
Yep.
need to look at. And whether our village code can include 114 as the mayor just described it.
I'd also encourage anybody who, as you just did, identifies any safety issues with our current parking arrangements to bring those forward. So, we want to make sure we address those sooner rather than later. There's another one on, I've seen on Marine Park where there's a parking spot coming out of Marine Park right in front of a stop sign that blocks traffic visibility both ways. We should, bring in our traffic consultant if needed for a place like what you're talking about. Maybe they can identify or design something to make it safer. And sometimes it means just eliminating a parking spot or two to make the flow of traffic safer too at intersections in particular. I'm even a little concerned about, the spaces we have by the crosswalks on Main Street.
They're very tight. They're very
Yeah,
close.
sometimes there's somebody walking right out of that crosswalk on a parking space. I don't see them. They're almost right in front of me. And maybe it means we eliminate that parking space right by the crosswalk too, so we can see the pedestrian
Maybe
traffic.
This one right here in front of Sam.
There you go.
Is there anybody else that wants to speak on Zoom or in the public that'd like to speak? Thank you, Anata. Mr. McGinnis, did you want to say something?
I missed most of the meeting, obviously, I just got here as soon as I could.
We're just looking for input from residents on parking, and if you want to come up and state your name and where you live. See you, Charlie.
Scott McGinnis, resident of 84 Main Street.
Mhm.
I'm not sure what has been addressed already, I apologize for my late arrival. My only suggestion, as a resident of Main Street, would be to consider, because there are so many apartments on Main Street and just in the village in general, for year-round residents to perhaps get an extension for time allotted in public. I actually have the right to park in the easement behind the movie theater in Sagtown. I don't, because it would essentially block foot traffic. It becomes a problem for my wife and I over time because we have to consistently move our car. I tried to do the right thing and we tried to do the right thing by the village. We could park there, it would cause problems. If we were allowed to park for an hour longer even, it would help us. And I'm saying it now, but I know I have spoken to others and they have the same thought.
So you mean like have a little extension on
Yeah,
your
each
time?
sticker, essentially.
Just so everybody knows, Scott's not a plan. I just happen to know him because,
I didn't expect to be speaking here.
and today is December 16th, as you know, Scott.
Yes,
8 years ago,
Yes.
we were involved in a tragic event on Main
I-
Street.
I do remember that well.
So that's why I recognized you. It just kind of brought that to memory.
Yeah.
So Scott, for clarity's sake though,
Sure.
our extension, because we have 2 hour, we have 3 hour, which are you talking about?
For us personally, most affected would be the Bridge Street lot, I believe, directly behind the movie theater, the 5 and 10. Yoga Shadi,
That's 3 hour parking, I think currently.
and 24 as well, actually, but
Yeah.
the one row, so it's limited, and a lot of people don't understand that either, so it's just essentially uses 3 hour.
Actually, before you leave, pick up the recommendations, suggestions we have there too.
Oh,
Because part of what Rebecca ran is bringing some consistency to those, but the consistency was to, make them all 3. So,
and then just as a resident, I'm not sure if anyone else has spoken on this issue. The gravel lot, which I understand is fluid, to say the least, that would be secondary. But just to throw it out there, that's what affects myself and my wife as residents, as it does, and I don't want to speak on anyone's behalf, but I have spoken to other residents of the village, and it's kind of,
These are residents that live on Main Street,
Yeah.
that live above the stores and the
Correct.
shops on Main Street.
Scott, let me ask you this. Are you aware of the 24-hour parking available in the Village Business
oh,
District? Okay, you're every single spot pretty much?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
yeah.
Scott, this is trustee Corish up on screen here. Would you have any idea as a downtown village resident, how many people are in the same situation that you find yourself in?
I know that there is housing above the laundromat, Scavoni's, the Five and Dime, where we live at 84 Main. I'm not sure on the
hardware store.
hardware store, there's. plenty of
IGA,
hardware
right?
store.
IGA, Cremoris Gallery, I believe,
Mhm.
and
There's quite a bit.
Quite a bit on the west side of Main Street.
there's a lot, above
Yeah.
10. The building next to them? Yeah, there's
Above
quite a
the,
bit.
above the Express, above Sen, on
Okay,
Washington
so
Street.
the bottom line is he doesn't know.
Yeah, they're all over the place.
There's a lot.
There are plenty.
There's a
We
lot,
could
yeah.
find out from the building department
Yeah,
as well
right.
as to how many residents. It would be nice to know what that number is, to see what, what solutions would be appropriate.
And you are the first person that's spoken about village residents on Main Street, just so you know.
I didn't exactly come prepared and I apologize for that, but I could drum up support, I'm sure.
Could you explain why an hour extension would help?
I just use that as an arbitrary number. A minute would help. You'd be surprised.
Okay,
Some of those buildings on that side do have lots in the back. on
Some
that
do,
part.
some don't.
So do some residents use those?
I can't speak for,
Yeah.
Mhm.
like I said, I don't use where I would technically be able to
Is that,
park
you're talking about the walkway?
the walkway where there are two dumpsters there
Yeah,
for
yeah.
Sagtown.
Mhm.
And where we would park, there
That's-
essentially would not be access via.
Right, that's actually a road, right? Or a,
There used to be parking there a long
yeah, I
time ago.
remember, yeah.
All right,
thank you, Scott.
thanks, Scott.
The other thing that I might consider, is changing the parking on, I believe it's Westwater, right along the,
Mhm.
like Barron's Cove. Maybe just turn that diagonal parking, cause I walked by there the other day and it's all parallel. You could easily put, I don't know how many.
That did come up, actually,
Yeah.
because we're doing improvements at the dock and
Okay,
possibly increasing spots, so.
Creating,
Yeah, yeah, I
creating,
just
creating,
figured I'd
creating actually a sidewalk there too, hopefully.
agreed. Okay.
Thanks, Scott.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
Scott.
you.
Got one more here.
Jill, you wanted to add something?
I was curious how many of the apartments are using the parking spaces overnight. So the last 2 mornings, I've driven through at 7:30 in the morning. And I've seen roughly 16 cars parked overnight. I could tell because they all had the frost still on their windshields. In the meadow lot and the one behind the 5 and 10 and all the lot behind the pharmacy. And also the gravel lot and the lot back here.
Washington Street.
Is it Washington Street, the one across?
Cross street,
Cross Street. They all had roughly 16 cars, so that kind of tells you how many apartment people are using, so that's 1632. Probably
Thank you.
50
Yeah.
50 spaces. being
Or
used.
more.
And it's probably more of a, obviously, it's more of a problem in the summer when
Yes.
parking becomes almost non-existent. Anybody else that wants to speak, Kate, on Zoom or? Okay, do the trustees want to add anything before I close the meeting?
it is worth emphasizing that this time of year, from roughly October to May, time restrictions on parking are not enforced. Paid parking is not enforced at all. Is that correct, chief, lady? So much more availability in the off season. The season is a problem.
Hello,
We're gonna, yeah,
I'd like to speak. I'm
Okay.
a resident, have been out here for 70 years with multiple family members, and I'm disabled. I try to come to town maybe every 2 weeks and time it about 2:30 to 3. Because of my disabilities, mainly to one leg and my back, I can't carry packages a long way. So I do use the handicap parking, but I try to do 5 errands at one time, meaning, I go to the hardware store, the pharmacy, maybe Scavoni's, and the bank. And carrying packages is very difficult for me. And I'm not supposed to carry packages or pull a cart, but I do carry packages. So I need to be closer to on Main Street to get to these stores fast and quick enough. 15-minute parking would not be enough time for me to do 4 or 5 of my errands at one time. And like I said, I don't come to town much. But I do want to get everything done at one time. And but it's I use the handicap spot, but again, I have to look a long time to get one, or sometimes there's a regular space open. It's just for me to carry. I know you're talking about spaces at Cor Maria. There's no way I'd be able to do that. I can't walk that distance and carry bags. So a lot of things you're suggesting don't make sense for people with special needs, in terms of older people, in terms of people that have had multiple injuries and multiple surgeries I've had. So, and again, I try to time my trips so that it's after the lunch hour, but before people start coming in for the dinner hour. And just, as you know, if you do any type of banking, the bank wiring and things like that, that takes time. So, or waiting for some of my scripts sometimes is 15 minutes in the pharmacy. So 15 minutes, I don't think is enough time for anyone to get anything done unless you make a quick stop at one place and you can run, and I can't run. So I don't know what you gentlemen want to do with that. And the other thing I want to say is that making parking spaces smaller is very dangerous. They did that in California in many of the parking lots for several stores that were anchored by supermarkets. And we found that most cars, most sedans, it's very difficult to open up the sedan doors in those areas. It makes it very dangerous. There are more people walking behind you when you're trying to get out. And so I don't think that, I know that it's more dangerous because I saw it in many parking lots that they did that too, in at least 5 parking areas in California that I used to go to when they downsized thinking a mid-sized car was a certain size, and people were getting hit. They were walking behind the cars, and it was very difficult for larger cars to even open up their doors and get out or get packages out. And so I don't recommend making compact spaces for cars. And there are a lot of trucks that come in at 12 o'clock for lunch. So I don't know where they'd park. I guess you'd have to have a special place for the big contractors' trucks at lunchtime because, they take up a lot of space and people walk behind them and you can't see them, and they're jaywalking, which they should be fined for jaywalking. I mean, it's bad enough when we have so many people in town, but then when they're jaywalking, then it's really someone's gonna get hurt.
Donna, can you do me a favor? Can you send me and the trustees something in writing, suggestions that you have that we could use for parking to help special needs people like yourself that are challenged with these, the parking in the village and doing your business? And if you could just send that to us or write it
Yes,
down and send it to us so we have it. So when we go forward with whatever changes we implement, we will definitely take that into consideration.
right. Or if maybe people that do have special needs and are residents here and we're paying our taxes, we could get a sticker that says, you know, it's going to take us longer to, we need those handicap spots and we need more time. And we don't walk as fast as other people and we can't carry. I mean, you know, I can't park by Cor Maria and walk to town and then walk, try to walk back with bags. There's just no way. So yes, I can, if you tell me where to, if you want me to bring it to the municipal building and who to label it to, I can write down what I know.
You can go to, do you access our website?
No, I don't know the web.
Access the village website and our emails are right on there. You could send an email to me and the trustees and it's right on, just go to Sag Harbor Village.
Sag Harbor Village
Yeah,
.gov or just,
it's Sag Harbor Village, ny.gov, I believe. No, what is it?
Sag,
Sag Harbor ny.gov. My email is, I'll tell you, my email is T Gardella.
okay, hold on. I need to write this down.
Everybody's getting my email, so get your pen out.
Well, if I don't write, I won't
It's on
remember.
my card.
His email.
And I have no idea where you're talking about 15-minute parking and 30-minute parking. I don't know where those places are. I guess I just try.
It's, what's interesting, Donna, is people have said that the 30-minute spaces, you know, they're desirable, that people want more of them.
But they're
And
very,
now here
there
you're
are
coming
there are
on.
very few of them,
Right.
though. It's not like we're gonna turn them all into 30-minute.
No, we wouldn't do that.
That was never the intent. It's just a few of them.
But it's a balance. Again, anything we do, and this is why I wanted to have this meeting, it has to be a balance. There's,
Yeah.
And none of our blue spaces have the 30-minute designation right now. I think the minimum is 2 hours.
Donna, can you give us your email and we'll reach out to you? Why don't we do that?
Okay, it's Donna, DONNA, B as in boy, Flores, FLORES, MD @gmail.com.
Perfect.
All right, thank you,
Thanks,
Donna.
Donna.
Thank you. And are those colored parking spaces up now?
No, this is just, these are all suggestions and
Oh.
recommendations that are being, nothing, this is all about, let's have a discussion before we move forward or propose anything.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
You're
Donna.
welcome. Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else that wants to talk? Do we want to put up the proposals that we had, the two suggestions that residents, just so people could look at them?
And there are handouts as well.
Which one is this one that we're posting now?
This was the one that trustee Plum sent over, and it is for the parking lot behind town, Sag Harbor Variety Store.
This is the bank parking lot. It was what we deem as the Apple Bank parking
Oh,
lot.
you know what? Forget that. I didn't realize that this, he's wants to take the street away.
Right.
That's really all that's where the spots come from.
Okay, so that was one, I'm just saying, we're just showing that there are residents that are proposing different
Okay,
things.
we
And
can show it. And then Mazier gave us one too.
Mazier, I think,
Mazier.
was an interesting
Yeah.
one because it changed also the flow of traffic, I think. This is the one of the proposals.
The
And you have
thing about this one is that it also addressed the drainage issue and it made it look prettier back there, and it gained 40 spots. But the problem is it closed, what's that? street?
Rose Street.
Yeah. So that's not gonna work.
So what's let's see the one from Mazier, I think. You don't have it? That was an interesting one because it created it didn't eliminate the street, Bob. What it did is it
No,
made it a
one-way,
one-way
though.
street.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that we're looking at. We're gonna put these to our traffic consultants, parking consultants to take a look at.
Isn't Rose Street one way right now?
No.
No. Oh, wait, Rose might be.
Yeah, Rose is,
Rose is one street, right? That's correct.
yeah, you have to head west on Rose.
It was what it was part of Meadow Street would
Right.
become one way.
Oh, I see. Okay.
It put diagonal
Back to the
parking.
tourists
on
in the
west
summer.
side. Diagonal parking on the west side, making that a one-way street.
Right.
Way south.
So some things we're hoping to implement by next season. Other things might take longer. It'll be an ongoing process, though.
I think the two big ones for me is the satellite parking for the employees. Is something we should work on right away,
Yes,
like now. And the second one is we should really look at the loading zones. I'm really concerned with the that's a big safety for me.
Yeah.
We should take a look at it.
and Ellen, I know that we're going to hopefully meet with the chamber sometime in the new year.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely. We can
And
set-
so maybe at that meeting, we could dig deep into loading zones. Just to get everybody's input on that, because I agree with the mayor. It's an issue that needs to be addressed.
No, that's why what I'd like to do is try to plan it so when we can get the most people. I know we came up with a date. I don't have it in front of me right now, but I'll look into that tomorrow. And Marilyn was on here also, and we've been talking about getting that handled. So we will.
I
we will
believe
dig-
we have January 13th on the calendar, Ellen.
Thanks. Yes, that's the date I was thinking. I just wasn't sure. So if we can, if we've got January 13th, we'll start and the village, you've agreed to that, which I'm not sure. We can start pushing that to make sure that we get as many members there as possible.
And
Fantastic.
then the other one is like the village residents on Main Street and residents as their parking applies to the paid lots, and we've been working on that. We've discussed it and the stickers and giving them more time to park in the village. So maybe it's something that we, as Scott said, take into consideration the people that are actually living above Main Street.
And if anybody has ideas and information on how to actually more easily enforce 24-hour parking, we've seen that with 3-day parking, 24-hour, people are just leaving their cars there for days and days on end, tying up parking spots. That's not the intent either. We'd appreciate any
I'm looking
input.
at a website right here, and there are probably 20, and it's handheld license plate recognition. Look, it's from a cell phone. And the officers of the TCOs just snap the shot, and it records it. And I think still, once that people get the idea that, hey, they're giving out tickets, they will probably start to, obey. Zoom.
Is there anybody else that wants to speak before we? That's it? Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll move it.
Motion by Deputy Mayor Hare, second.
Second.
Seconded by Trustee Plum. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The meeting is now adjourned, and thank you. I want to thank all the
Thanks, everybody.
people that came out. and the
Thank you,
people on
everybody.
Zoom. Thank you very much.